there. I'm sorry, I was just kind of in a daze. Okay, so, more a buddy today, and cross my fingers. I'm hoping to get through the end of the book today. It'll probably be 2 or 3 videos, but I'm hoping to finish Buddy and get it put up, and then we will start a new book. So, and I'm not telling which book we're going to do next. So, anyway, here we go. Buddy, chapter 30. I think I haven't read chapter 30, but anyway, here we go. Before we know it, school is over. Miss Watson's giving me a hug and saying she's so proud of me and I've got a lot of potential and all kinds of stuff like teachers always say. I'm just thinking, what am I going to do this summer sitting in that apartment all day, every day? The whole family goes to a party where the kindergartners graduate to first grade. All Tanya's friends are wearing big bows in their hair and holding hands. Teacher gives Tanya a piece of paper with a giant smiley face on it saying she's an honor student in kindergarten. Daddy and Mama want to be happy, but they can't, 'cause Daddy's job clearing out all those broke trees is over. What they can do, they've done. When we get home that night, Daddy and Mama sit together at the table in that little apartment. They got the newspaper spread out in front of them, and every once in a while they make a circle around a notice for a job. Daddy's shaking his head. Mama's wrapping her hands together. "What are we going to do now?" she says. Daddy folds up the newspaper. He sits back. He crosses his arms over his chest. He looks Mama in the face. "We're going to go home," he says. And so we do. We can't move into the house to start. It ain't close to ready. No rain can get in because we fixed the roof where the pecan tree came through. A bunch of men from the church helped us get the front porch straightened out, and we got it mostly mucked out. But it ain't hardly got no inside walls, and the outside walls are just the weatherboard nailed on the studs. Mama won't even come look at it, much less live in it, especially once she hears about the squatters. Brother James fixes up a place for her with a widow 2 streets over. The widow's old, and she needs somebody to look after her. Mama can do that while she's chasing baby Terrell. Mama says maybe the widow will let her use the kitchen to make a few pralines again. And if she's going to be cooking for the widow, maybe she can cook up a few lunches to sell to the people working on the houses. The problem is that the widow's only got 1 extra bedroom. Daddy's got to sleep in the old house or on the street. I say I'll sleep with him in the house. Mama says over her dead body. She says it ain't safe. Daddy says it's us being there that's going to make it safe. And besides, we like camping out. He's tee-heeing about that, but Mama ain't laughing at all. After a while, though, she nods her head. "Okay," she says, "I guess you're going to do what you're going to do." So Mama and Tanya and baby Terrell move into the old lady's extra room, and Daddy and Rover and me move into the old house full time. Rover thinks he's in heaven, getting to chase rats every day. The good thing is he don't line them up on the porch anymore. And I've just about taught him not to jump all over me, especially when he's got one hanging in his mouth. Daddy ain't got no regular job, but he's picking up day work, gutting houses and clearing lots. He works on the old house whenever he can scrape up enough money to buy some boards or nails or whatever else he needs. He gives me projects every day when he's gone. I'm getting good at ripping stuff out. Next, he's going to teach me how to sheet rock. Summer is almost halfway over, and truth be told, that house don't look much different. Daddy's starting to sit with his head in his hands again. He's starting to get those lines in his face. Then one afternoon I look up from where I'm nailing down a loose board on the front porch, and here comes Mama with Tanya and baby Terrell. They ain't never been by before, not the whole time since we've been back. Tanya's wearing her crown and holding baby Terrell by the hand. Mama's pulling an old rusty wagon. Inside that wagon are 2 great big cooking pots and a cardboard box full of paper towels, napkins, and plastic forks with a great big old loaf of white bread laid over the top. Stuck on the side of the box with tape is a sign that says, Mama's Home Cooking. I can tell Tanya colored it because the S is backwards. There's 2 servants still left, Mama says, and I won't charge you. She puts down the handle of the wagon and picks up baby Terrell. Tanya grabs hold of her skirt. Then Mama just stands in the yard and looks. I see her eyes going up to the big X on the front porch. She looks at me and she looks at that X, and I know what she's thinking. Tanya's lifting up her thumb toward her mouth. Don't stick that in your mouth, I say. Tanya jumps and stares at me. You ain't my daddy, she says. I lift up my hand like I'm going to wallop her, and Mama says, Lil T, I thought you were older than that. I let my hand down. I feel ashamed, and I feel sad. Then I look up at the house with them. I ain't noticed before how the yard is all full of weeds, and they're almost tall as me. I ain't seen the way the grass is growing up through the cracks in the sidewalk and practically covering it up. I ain't noticed the way the paint is peeling off in great big old chunks the size of my hand, all the way up the side of the house to where the watermark is still a dirty black line. It's been a long time since I noticed that the bushes up by the porch are just dried up brown sticks, or that stump of the pecan tree is all covered over with cat's claw vine and morning glory. Then along comes Rover galloping like a racehorse around the corner of the house. He skids to a stop in front of us with his tongue flopping out and his tail going a mile a minute. He ain't seen Mama and them since we started camping in the old house. He bounces around on his feet and barks. Mama almost smiles. That dog's grown, she says. Baby Terrell's trying to jump out of her arms. She's holding on to him the best she can. You can get down, she says. You can't get down, she says. It's too dangerous. No, he shouts, and we all stop in our tracks and look at him. Did he say no? I say. Mama's looking at him like she's proud. Did you say no? She says. Did you say that, baby Terrell? He's flopping himself hard. No, he yells again. No, no, no. Then we're all laughing and Mama puts him on the ground. I guess if you can talk, I better let you walk. Lil T, don't let him out of your sight. I'm going to have a look at this old house. I guess I have to. Mama goes inside and Daddy's hammer stops. She stays inside a long, long time. I eat a bowl of red beans and rice and 3 pieces of bread. I throw a stick for Rover. He runs to pick it up and brings it back. Baby Terrell claps his hands. We do it all again. Tanya's sitting on the steps. She's sitting on her hand so her thumb won't accidentally slide into her mouth. Rover goes running up to her and jumps on her, and her crown almost comes off. "Bad dog," she says. "Go away," she says. But she's laughing. I say, "Down. Say down," I tell her. "He don't understand go away." She's too busy straightening up her crown to pay any attention. "Bye, bye, 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 bye," Baby Terrell says. Then I look up and there's Mama standing in the front door. She's standing there looking at us sitting on the steps. She looks at Tanya and she looks at me and she looks at Baby Terrell. We're looking back at her. "What are you staring at?" she says all of a sudden. "Your face is all wet," Tanya says. Mama reaches up and rubs her hand across her cheeks. "Now it's dirty," Tanya says. Mama closes her eyes and takes a big breath. "And you think that's funny, I guess." Tanya shakes her head real slow. "It's okay, Mama," I say. "It's going to be all right." "You aren't old enough to tell me that," she snaps back at me. "Besides, I've got something to tell you. Me and Tanya are going to take that wagon and walk to the store. I got enough cash in my pocket right here to buy us a couple of jugs of bleach and some scrub brushes. You're going to watch Baby Terrell. When we get back, we're going to set up Tanya and Baby Terrell in the front room where he can't get loose. And then you and me are going to start washing the wood. I figure if I don't start helping out, this house ain't ever going to be done. Come on, Tanya, you're going to carry the brushes." Mama don't like working with that bleach. Daddy teases her and says she's going to turn white. She says if she does, it'll only be in spots, and that'll make her leopard, and he better watch out if he gets too close. Daddy laughs out loud, and Mama smiles a little, and I just keep on scrubbing. Daddy's got an electrician lined up to come fix the wires as soon as it's all washed. A man from the church is going to help with the pipes. Then we can start hanging the sheetrock. Things are finally starting to move along. One day I'm taking a break from scrubbing and sitting outside watching Baby Terrell with Tanya when I look up and there's Brother James standing just inside the gate. "Your Mama and Daddy inside?" he says. "Yes, sir." "Go get 'em. I've got something to tell y'all." "I'll watch the baby." I go inside. The house is dark and quiet. Little spots of dust are floating in the air where the sun's coming through the cracks. Then I hear their voices. They're upstairs. I climb up the creaky stairs. When I get there, they ain't scrubbing. They're standing in their bedroom, except it ain't got any walls. They're hugging. "Brother James is here," I say. "He says go get you." "Brother James," Daddy says. Mama rubs her hand across her face. "How do I look?" she says. "Strong," Daddy says. We walk out on the porch, and Brother James is bouncing Baby Terrell up and down on his knee like Grandpa T used to do. Baby Terrell's laughing and squealing, and Tanya squinched over to one side, smiling and sitting on her hands. Everybody says their hellos and finds a shady place to sit. "Y'all get to watch much TV?" Brother James says. Daddy laughs a little. "Ain't got no electricity, Brother James. Can't watch much TV that way." "True," Brother James nods. "Then y'all probably didn't see that show last night." We're all shaking our heads. "It was about Katrina." We all make faces. "It was about the rescuers, the ones who saved the dogs." I sit up. There must have been 100 different groups that came in and saved those animals. They were telling about how they found cats and birds and dogs, especially dogs, all left behind. They said at first they thought the people had just abandoned their pets. They thought the people just didn't love them. "But our car was too little," I say. "We thought we'd be right back." They figured it out, Brother James says, and nods. They're smart people. They figured it out. We're all sitting there real quiet, just looking at the dead yard. Rover's poking his nose in the stick bushes and piles of trash. His tail is going back and forth like it's attached to an engine. He bends down on his front legs and whines a little. He sees a rat, Brother James says. He finds a lot of 'em, Daddy says. We all nod. I'm watching Rover, but now I'm thinking about Buddy. Buddy didn't bother about rats. And he didn't jump on people. He didn't tear around the yard like he was crazy. He barked the squirrels away, and then he laid in the cool of the tree until I came to talk to him. That's what Buddy did. He laid still, and he listened to me. I guess, Brother James goes on, since y'all didn't see the show, you didn't see about that shelter out in California somewhere. We shake our heads and keep on watching Rover. I wish he would either catch that rat or leave it alone. It's a fine shelter, Brother James says. Looks like a fancy resort hotel for dogs. Rover jumps and yelps. Just catch it, I yell at him. They showed some of the dogs living there, some of the ones from Katrina. I turn to look at him. He looks at me. One of those dogs was a black dog with 3 legs. Buddy! I shout and jump up. You saw Buddy on TV? Brother James grins real big. I wanted you to know he's okay, little T. He made it out. He's safe. He's a California dog now, but he's safe. Daddy, I say, let's go get him. Chapter 31. Right away they start making excuses. We don't know what shelter that is. It's too far away. How are we going to get there? Where are we going to get that kind of money? But we can find out what shelter it is, can't we, Brother James? I'm standing right up close to him. I've got his arm in my 2 hands. I'm shaking it. I guess so, he says, kind of laughing. We could probably call a TV station. Somebody there ought to know. How much does it cost to get to California? $100? They all laugh. 1,000 more like it, they say. For all of us? For one of us, Daddy says. Slow down, little T. He stands up. We're not the kind of people who can just pick up and go to California. He stands there kind of quiet for a minute. I'm sorry, son, he says. Then he picks up his hammer, and he heads back inside. I can't sleep that night. I'm laying there on my air mattress thinking about Buddy in a cage in California. I'm thinking about how he needs me to tell him stories, how he wants to put his nose in the palm of my hand. I'm wondering what he would think if he knew about Rover. Would he think I forgot him? Would he think I said, I don't want no piece of a dog. I want me a whole dog. I'm thinking we got money somewhere. Look at that sheetrock Daddy just piled up in the front room. Look at those shingles he's nailing on the porch roof every day. Where does that stuff come from if we ain't got money? $1,000. I could earn that much. I could work. Doing odd jobs around. I ain't got no lawnmower anymore, but I could do the mowing if somebody had the machine. I could muck out houses. My bicycle's gone, but my legs are strong. I could pick up the trash everywhere. Daddy's going to teach me how to nail sheetrock. And I know how to saw a board straight, and ain't everybody can do that. I'm thinking I could even build a new shed with all the junk wood laying around. I could find an old army blanket just like Grandpa T's. I could find new bowls and make a new sign. I could fix it all up almost exactly like it was before. I'm turning back and forth on my air mattress. It's hot in that house with no fans and no air conditioner. I can hear the crickets in the trees and a car or two on a street somewhere far away. I hear Rover snuffling around under the house and settling into his sleeping place right below my bed. And I'm laying there sweating and doing numbers. How long would it take me to earn $1,000? What could I do to get it? One more time I'm thinking of a plan. One more time I'm figuring out a way, because there's one thing I know for sure. I'm going to get that money, and I'm going to bring my buddy home. Next Sunday I go to church with an armload of signs. I stick them up on the bulletin board by the sanctuary. I stick them up on the wall by the Sunday school. I start handing them out to the people as they walk in the door. Mama shakes her head. Daddy says I'm crazy. I say I want my dog. Boy for hire, my sign says. What you need done, I'll do it. That's in big letters. Then it says, Katrina rescuers took my dog to California. I got to go get him. It costs $1,000 to go to California. Then I put a picture of a dog. I drew it just like Buddy. Black with 3 legs. Then under the picture it says, please help me get my dog back. Tyrone Elijah Roberts. When I walk in to sit down, I see people looking at me. Miss Washington's nephew nods, but he don't smile. Mr. Nelson's grinning. A little white boy stands up in his seat just to get an eyeful. I try to act like I know what I'm doing. I try to act like a boy who can do anything. After church, I go home and wait for the phone to ring. The first call comes from Brother James. The church still has a lawn, he says, and it's still got a lawnmower. When do you want me to come? Saturday, just like before. The second call comes from Miss Washington's nephew. He says his name is Eddie. He says he's doing that house all by himself. He says sometimes he could use a hand. When do you want me to come? I'll be at work tomorrow, he says. But what about the next day? A white lady 3 streets off and around the corner needs somebody to pull out all her dead bushes. She says she's finally tired of looking at 'em. I take Rover with me on that one. I figure he's about as good at digging as anybody. I almost fall out laughing when I see those bushes. They're dead as everything else, but that lady took spray paint and sprayed all the leaves green. It helped for a while, she says, but it's time to plant new. Everybody I work for tells me, good luck with your dog. I tell them, call me again and tell your friends to call me too. Daddy catches me one night sitting on my mattress counting my money. I've got the battery lamp lit up beside me, and I'm putting the 5s in one stack, the 10s in another, and my single 20 all by itself. How much you got? Daddy says. $60. In 1 week? Pretty good, huh? I say. Daddy nods real slow. How long is it going to take you to get 1,000? I start doing the math in my head. 17 weeks. Daddy nods again. About 4 months. We sit and look at the money. Buddy was your dog for about 4 months, he says. I look at him again. What are you saying, Daddy? Nothing, he says. I ain't saying nothing at all. The second week I earned $100, and I tell Daddy it's going to go faster than we thought. He says that's all well and good for me to be working for other people during the week, but on Saturday the only thing I can do is mow at the church. The rest of the day he needs me at the house. The front room is all wired now. It's time to start hanging the sheetrock. Saturday morning when I finish at the church, Brother James comes out with my $5 and hands me a letter. This is some news about Buddy, he says, and goes on back inside. I don't want to get home to read it. I don't wait to get home to read it. I sit right down on the church steps and unfold the paper. It's addressed to Brother James. Dear Reverend James, it says, thank you for writing to inquire about the black amputee mixed breed dog featured on the recent television documentary. You are correct. That dog you saw is indeed named Buddy, and our records show that he was rescued from a second-floor bathroom in a house in New Orleans. Because he was never claimed, we put him up for adoption. A local family adopted him about 6 months ago. We do not provide the names of adoptive families, but we have passed on your information to them. It is our policy to leave it up to the adoptive family to decide whether to contact the prior owners. Thank you very much for your interest. Sincerely, and so on. I fold up that letter real careful. I sit there a while and I look at the sidewalk. I ain't never noticed before how that cement's got little black spots and little gray spots and even little red spots all mixed up in it. I bend down to stare at it, and then I sit up and take out the letter and read it again. Then I remember Daddy's waiting for me at home. I fold up the letter and slide it deep into my pocket. I think maybe I'll wait until the end of the day to show it to Daddy. Or maybe I'll wait until tomorrow. At home, they're setting up to hang that sheetrock. Eddie's coming over to help. When we get going, I'm sure glad he's there, because hanging sheetrock is the hardest thing I've ever done. That sheetrock's heavy as a ton of bricks, and there ain't nothing for it but to pick it up sometimes and hold it where you need it. Daddy and Eddie do most of the lifting, and Mama and me are trying the best we can to help. By the end of the day, I see Mama can't hardly help no more. She's completely worn out. Daddy tells her to go on and check on Tanya and the baby while we finish up. I hear her barely dragging her feet along the floor while Eddie and me are hanging up that last piece, and Daddy's banging home those nails. When we're done, we step back and take a look. Daddy says, "Woo!" And I say, "We started. I guess we can finish." And Eddie laughs and goes on outside to start washing up. Then I pull the letter out of my pocket and I hand it to Daddy. "Brother James gave me this morning," I say. Daddy's standing there reading it with his arms all covered in sheetrock dust and his hair powdered over with white. He looks up at me. "Why you ain't shown me this before?" he says. "We were busy," I say. "So what do you think?" he says. I shrug. "Wonder who these people are," he says, and turns over the letter to look at the back. "Ain't nothing on the back," I say. "That's all there is." "But he's a lucky dog," Daddy says. "He's got a new home." He gives me back the letter. I fold it up real careful and shove it in my pocket. "It ain't fair," I say. "Come on," Daddy says. "Let's get cleaned up." Outside, Eddie's washing himself off with the hose. He starts spraying me, and then we're spraying each other, and then Daddy gets wet, and then even Mama joins in. She's squealing like a little girl, and we're shooting water all over her and Tanya. Baby Terrell's sitting in a puddle and splashing his hands. Rover's hopping all around and trying to bite the water out of the air. Then he goes galloping across the yard and knocks Baby Terrell smack over into the puddle. I snatch up Baby Terrell. He's screaming like he's been shot, but all he is wet. Rover runs off to the corner of the yard. He sits down and looks at us. I put down Baby Terrell and I grab up a stick and chase after Rover. "Bad dog!" I'm shouting. "You're a bad dog!" I hit him hard on his behind. He yelps. I smack at him again and he runs off. "I'll get you!" I yell, but Rover disappears under the house. I turn around. Daddy's standing there holding the hose. "Buddy wouldn't have done that," I say. "Buddy had better sense." Daddy walks over to the spigot and turns off the water. He looks at Mama. "Take the Tanya and the baby on home," Daddy says. He looks at Eddie. "Thank you," he says. "I guess we're done for the day." Then he looks at me. "Lil T, come here with me." Daddy takes me inside. He stands in front of me and crosses his arms over his chest. I'm standing there with water dripping off me. I'm waiting for him to lift his hand. That dog don't have any idea what he did wrong. Daddy waits a minute. But you do. I know he's going to hit me now, but he don't. He just talks. You're striking out in anger, son. It don't work. It never will. He heaves up a sigh from deep in his chest. Then he leans against the door frame and looks up at the ceiling. Buddy ain't your dog anymore, he says, and we can't go to California. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I'm always saying I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm going to go on to chapter 32. I don't think I can go to church the next morning. Eddie's going to be there. He's going to know I'm the kind of boy who would hit a dog like that. He's going to say that boy don't deserve to get his dog back from California. And he's going to be right. But Daddy says I got to go, and Mama says I'm not sick, I'm just lazy. She says if anybody ought to stay in bed, it's her, 'cause she can hardly raise up her arms. But one thing she's not doing is missing church. I get off easy. Eddie ain't in church. I guess he's more worn out than he let on. We're filing out afterward, and 3 different people come up to me with work they need done. The lady who had all her bushes ripped out wants me to come plant her new ones. Mr. Nelson's decided he wants to do something about his front yard and wants me to come over and start whacking down the weeds so at least he can see what's going on in the street from his front window. An old lady I never noticed before says, can I come over and help her move her sofa? She don't like where it is, and she can't lift it by herself. I'm making all my arrangements when Brother James comes up to me. Got another letter yesterday, he says. It came after you left out. You'll like this one better. I grab it out of his hands and huddle off to the side of the steps while he's shaking hands and Mom and Daddy are chatting up the neighbors. Dear Reverend James, we are the family who adopted Buddy. Katrina caused so much loss. It makes us sad to think that a family also lost such a wonderful, kind, dear dog as Buddy. Please put us in touch with the family who lost Buddy. We love Buddy very much, but we want to do the right thing. Perhaps something can be worked out. I don't even get to the sincerely part before I'm jumping up and grabbing Daddy's arm and saying, Read this! Look here, Daddy, read this! He says, What happened to my manners? And I say, Read this! Here, read it! So he takes it out of my hands and he reads it, and then he passes it over to Mama. She reads it with her forehead all wrinkled up and says, Well, I'll be. Then she gives it back to Daddy, and Daddy gives it back to me. Well, little T, he says, I hope you got some of your grandpa on you. I hope you know how to write a good letter. It's all on you now. I write the best letter that's ever been written in the whole wide world. I tell them the whole story, how I'd been wanting a dog all my life, and Daddy always said we didn't have the money, and then wham! We ran into Buddy on the way to church, and it was meant that he would be my dog. I explain about why we left him and how it didn't turn out like we planned. I tell them about coming to the house and finding the note, all faded and pale. I tell them how we saw Buddy on TV, and I'm working to earn money, and I hope, oh, how I hope, when I get enough money I can fly out to California and bring Buddy home. I'll work on that letter all day Monday and put it in the mailbox just before Daddy gets home. He comes up the steps to the porch, and I'm waiting for him with a copy of what I wrote. He says he don't see how anybody can say no to that letter. He washes off in the hose and pops open a beer from the cooler and he keeps in the house, and he sits down to rest. It won't be long before we'll walk over to the widow's house and get some supper with Mama and the rest. But right now we're going to sit on the porch and stare. But right now we're just going to sit on the porch and stare at the evening. We ain't been staring 5 minutes when up comes Mr. Nelson. He's walking fast, like he's in a hurry or like he's mad. I'm thinking I was supposed to get hit there today. Was it today? He sits down beside Daddy on the step. Want a beer? Daddy says. He shakes his head. I don't have time. Was I supposed to come today? I say. He looks at me like he's just noticed me. No, whatever, whenever. He waves his hand at me like I ain't hardly there. Daddy's looking hard at him. What's troubling you? He takes a deep breath. I got some bad news. Daddy waits a second, but Mr. Nelson don't say anything. Well, tell it, Daddy says. Mr. Nelson gives me a sideways glance. It's about your friend, he says. That J-boy? Daddy raises his eyebrows. And about Eddie, Mr. Nelson says. Daddy sets down his can. Eddie wasn't at church yesterday, I say. No, Mr. Nelson says. He's in jail. Jail? For what? What for? Daddy says. He shot J-boy. We can't think of one single word to say. Mr. Nelson's sitting there nodding his head. Then he twists to look at me again. But don't worry, he says real quick. J-boy ain't dead. How? I start. Mr. Nelson holds up his hand. I tell it. I just got to think how to start. We wait. It's like this. Turns out J-boy's living here by himself. His mama's still in Houston. I knew that, I say. He ain't got nowhere to live. He's hanging out with a bunch of thugs. They're camping out in empty houses. Daddy looks over at me, and I look back at him. They're stealing to feed themselves. And to buy their drugs, Daddy says. That too, Mr. Nelson says. So what's all that got to do with Eddie? Daddy says. Everybody knows Eddie's got guns in that place he's staying. Everybody knows he's over here Saturday helping you hang rock. He gets home Saturday evening and his place has been broke into. It's been tossed up and down, but Eddie ain't no fool. He's got his guns hidden in a place he made in the floor. He hears a noise, he gets his gun, he creeps through the rooms, and there's J-boy, pulling Eddie's clothes out of his drawers and stuffing Eddie's jewelry in his pocket. Eddie says, "Stop!" and J-boy reaches for something under his shirt. Eddie shoots. J-boy falls. Eddie calls the police. They take J-boy to the hospital and Eddie to the jail. But that ain't fair, I say. What's Eddie going to do? Mr. Nelson heaves a sigh. Ain't nothing he can do, Mr. Nelson says. Ain't nothing at all. Wednesday night, we all go to prayer meeting. We don't usually go to that, but Brother James is going to pray on Eddie, and we want to be there. The church is full. Brother James starts out talking about sorrow, and he moves on to strength. When he starts up the praying part, he asks God to forgive Eddie. I ain't sure what Eddie's done that needs forgiving, but then Brother James says everybody needs forgiveness, and he asks God to forgive J-boy too. Then he gets to the what are we going to do about it part. Mr. Nelson says there ain't nothing we can do about it. But Brother James thinks different. He wants us to pray. He wants us to keep Eddie in our prayers every day. He wants us to remember Miss Washington and how she was so kind to everybody who crossed her path, and how she raised up Eddie when there wasn't anybody else to do the job, and how Eddie turned out so good. And he went off to Iraq and served his country, and how now it's our turn to serve him with our prayers. Then Brother James changed it up a little. But we can do more, Lord, he prays. Lord, you know that old saying, God gives every bird its food, but he don't throw it in its nest. What does that mean? It means you give us the tools, Lord, but we got to pick them up and use them. And what is the tool we've got that's going to help Brother Eddie? Right now, the one thing we've got that we can use is money, Lord. I hate to even mention that word in a prayer. Seems like we get all twisted up sometimes about money. But we got to remember that money ain't nothing but a tool. It's what we get to use. It's what we use to get what we need. And right now, what Eddie needs is to get out of that jail so he can go on with his work until that trial comes up and that jury finds him innocent of all charges. Because we know that's what's going to happen, Lord, in the end. And it ain't right for Eddie to be sitting in that jail until that time comes, Lord. We got to find a way to bail Eddie out of jail. And the only tool we've got to do that with is money. So we're praying today, Lord, for you to show us the way to find the money to set our brother free. Amen. Lots of times when Brother James prays like that, people are shouting out during the prayer or hollering, hallelujah, when it's done. This Wednesday night, the whole church is sitting there quiet and still. Ain't nobody standing up and saying, I got $1 I can give. I ain't surprised. Brother James is talking about a lot of money. Ain't nobody sitting there got much to spare. They've got houses to build and babies to feed. Maybe there's somebody else sitting in jail we don't know about. Maybe they've got sorrows they ain't shared. Brother James is standing there in the front of the church with his hands held up in the air. He's looking out over the congregation. He's waiting for somebody to stand up and give his mite. He's waiting, and he's waiting, but nobody stands up. I poke Daddy. Ain't you got $1? I whisper. If everybody in this room gives $1, he whispers, we won't even make a dent. Brother James' arms are drifting down. That room is hot as Hades. I'm sweating, shifting in my seat. All of a sudden, I stand up. I can't believe it. My mouth pops open and I hear myself talking. I got some money to give, I say. I got $215. I'll give that. I sit down fast so I don't faint. My heart is beating so loud I can't hear any other sound. Daddy's looking at me like I lost my mind. Mama reaches out her hand and puts it on my knee. Tanya's grinning with her mouth full of white teeth. I hear other people starting to stand up. I hear people singing out numbers. I bend my head down. Oh, buddy, I'm thinking, what have I done? What have I just done? And that is the end of chapter 32. We'll go on to chapter 33. So that'll be 4 chapters. 30, 31, 32, and 33. There are 37 chapters. So that'll be 34, 35, 36, 37. So there'll be 4 more chapters. Let's do this. Daddy says I should be joyful that I'm giving all my money to bring Eddie home instead of Buddy. I don't feel joyful. I feel sad. The next day I stack up all my bills on my bed and I count them out. I said wrong at church. I don't have 215. I have 250. I'm sitting there looking at my stats. I only promised 215. I can keep $35. But then I pick it all up and stuff every last bill in the envelope. What am I going to keep $35 for? I can't do anything with $35. It ain't going to get me to California one day sooner. I put that envelope in my pocket and I carry it to the church and I hand it to Brother James. Is that your California money? He says. I nod. Eddie's going to appreciate this. I nod again. You still doing your jobs around? Yes, sir. You got any of your signs left over? I point to the church bulletin board. Maybe I can drum you up a little more business, he says. I shrug. Maybe, I say, but I'm running out of time. You've got your whole life, boy. School starts up in 2 weeks. I have to study, and Daddy says I have to work at our house on the weekends. That don't leave me much time. Brother James is looking at me. Your daddy's doing right, son, he says. School first and family. That's how you get on in the world. I nod. Then Brother James hands me another letter. I'm getting to be your post office boy, he says. But this letter ain't from California. I start to get a little dizzy. It ain't from Chicago either. But I recognize Jamila's writing in a second. She's looking for you, Brother James says, and goes on back in the church. I sit myself down on the front steps and hold that letter in my hands. It's clean and flat. She wrote it with a purple pen. It says it's from Virginia. I reach in and pull out 2 sheets of paper. The top one is a letter. It says, Dear Brother James, do you remember me? I hope so. Chicago was too cold, so we left. We're in Virginia now, but it's cold too. We miss New Orleans. We heard about Katrina. We're worried about Little T and his family. Where are they? How can I write him a letter? He wrote me about his dog. If you know where he is, please send him this picture. I look at the second page. It's a drawing of a dog. A black, 3-legged dog. Across the bottom, in big square letters, she wrote, Lil T's dog, Buddy. I fold up the letter. I fold up the picture. I put them in my pocket. I sit there a minute until I don't feel so dizzy. Then I head home. When I get back to the house, I start right into taping sheetrock. It's a quiet job. You mix up the mud, you smear it on the joints, you press the tape on top and smear on some more mud. When it's dry, you sand it smooth. It's a job I can do all by myself. Mix, smear, press. Mix, smear, press. After a while, I forget all about the letters. I forget about Eddie. I forget about my money. I keep hoping I'm going to forget about Buddy. But there ain't enough sheetrock in the world to make me do that. The rest of that week I think about writing Jamila back, but I don't do it. I guess she can wait. I did. I don't even tell anybody she wrote. I don't change anything, so what's the use? On Sunday when I go to church, I don't look at anybody as I walk in. I sit in the seat next to Daddy and I stand up when everybody else does. And I open my mouth and I sing. But I ain't feeling joyful. I look over and Eddie's standing across the aisle. He's singing. He glances over at me and smiles, but I don't smile back. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling angry. When we get to the part where Brother James does his long prayer, I wish I had earplugs. I wish I could stick my fingers in my ears and hum. First off, Lord, Brother James starts out, we have so much to thank you for. Brother Eddie is here today because you showed us how to help him. You showed us the true meaning of money, Lord. It's a tool. It's something you use, not something you keep. You helped us, Brother Eddie, and you helped us help Brother Eddie, and we are eternally grateful. Amen, somebody sings out in the back. I look over at Eddie. His head is bending down, his lips are moving. All of a sudden, I wonder what it's like sitting in jail. I wonder what it's like thinking about your aunt who raised you up. I wonder if you say a prayer of thanksgiving that she ain't there to see you. I wonder if you just want to shrivel up and die right there. I wonder if you think life ain't worth living if you're sitting in jail like that. The Lord giveth, Brother James goes on, and the Lord taketh away. That's the truth, people say, and I agree with them. Tanya starts banging her shoes on the chair, and Mama pokes her. A few Sundays ago, Lord, Brother James says, this church was papered over with signs. I look up. Brother James' eyes are shut tight. Signs about a dog, Brother James says. I get all hot. Signs about a dog that ain't where he belongs. A dog that's been whisked away to a distant place. Daddy's beside me sitting real stiff. Signs about a boy who wants that dog home so bad he thinks he can work his way out to California and get him. Tanya casts her eye at me and grins. That's you, she mouths. I purse my lips like I'm sucking a lemon. I bend down my head. Lord, you watch that boy give all his California money to set Brother Eddie free. There you were, Lord, sitting up in your heaven and looking down on us, and you saw him do that, and it filled you up with joy. I'm hotter than I've ever been in my life. I'm thinking I'm going to melt into a puddle right there on that seat. Lord, we know you are proud of your child. You are proud of his generosity and his courage and his strength. And so you reached out your hand from on high and you made a move. I've got myself tucked low as I can get, but I still feel like there's a spotlight shining straight down on me. Those signs, Brother James goes on, didn't stay in this church. They made their way out into the world. People out there saw them. Phone calls were made. Letters were written. Hands were shook. Lord, the Bible says the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. But maybe they got it backward. Maybe it ought to say that the Lord taketh away and then the Lord giveth back. Because you're giving today, Lord. You're giving to that boy who made those signs. Lord, you're the one who touched the people out there in the world who read those signs. You're the one who moved their hearts to generosity. You're the one who gathered them together exactly where they needed to be. And you're the one who, through your almighty power and everlasting grace, has delivered to this congregation on this very morning 2 airplane tickets to California leaving on Wednesday. I can't help it. I pop up out of my chair without thinking. The whole congregation starts cheering. It ain't like a prayer at all. It's like a football game. They're all cheering and clapping. Eddie comes right across the aisle and starts pounding me on the back, and Brother James comes walking down from out of the pulpit with 2 folded up pieces of paper in his hand and grins as wide as the Mississippi River shining in his on his face. God picked you for that dog, son, he says, and he hands the tickets to me. You fly on out there and you bring your buddy home. May the Lord bless and keep you. May he make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace, and give you peace. Until next time, that's all for now.